Hi there. Thanks for joining me here on Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga and the creator of the Momentum Magic Method, the way to become a confident teacher, one who effortlessly walks around the room, shares clear cues, easily builds sequences, and speaks from your heart, sharing authentically with your students. Here on the podcast, you'll discover new and inspiring ways to share your cues and create your sequences. You'll uncover habits and frameworks all designed to empower you so that you can teach in a way that feels authentic and natural. For some episodes, I'll have a guest, and other episodes I'll share with you on my own, and in each one, you'll always get action steps and takeaways you can apply right away to your teaching. In addition to the podcast, follow me on Instagram and TikTok for daily videos. You'll see a link on both of my profiles, my Stan Store link. Click it and unlock ways you can get the support you need to be the teacher of your dreams. You'll find links to the podcast, my free ebook, and other resources to help you be the best teacher you can be. You'll also find the link to my signature program, the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint Learning Program, and you can see if you qualify to enroll. So with that, let's get on with today's show. Hi there. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 366. I'm recording this on August 27th, 2025, and this will go live on September 1st, 2025. So I don't know when you're listening to this, but if you're listening to this in basically current time, it is the end of the summer, especially if you live where I live on the East Coast. I live in Boston. And it's always, for me, such an emotional time because I am absolutely a summer person. And fall is great, but I hate the winter and I don't really like the spring all that much either. So I always get so sad when it gets to be this time of year. And this week, I went to the beach, not for the first time. I went to the beach last week because we went on vacation, just a weekend in Portland, Maine. And we did go to the beach then, but there is this one beach here in Massachusetts called Crane Beach that I love. And I went up there yesterday or the day before, and I had such a perfect day. I just drove up. It's an hour and 15 minutes from where I live, and the weather was beautiful. Spent the day on the beach. They have this farm stand where you buy lunch, and after the beach, there's this winery and farm and like petting zoo for kids down the street. And it was just a perfect day. And I just felt so sad that summer is ending. I'm actually recording this in one part of my house that I hope won't be too loud because there's so many landscapers outside my house right now from all the neighbors just starting to rake leaves and things like that. So it's busy around here, and hopefully the sound won't be of low quality. So I hope you can hear me okay. What we're going to talk about today is sort of a business topic, but it really relates to you as a yoga teacher and how you're doing and how you're operating and how you're kind of moving through not just your day, but your week and your month. You know, for a lot of yoga teachers, they're teaching along with working full time, having a family, obviously having a personal life, doing things that have nothing to do with yoga. And what a lot of teachers tell me is that once they start teaching, it consumes their life. The prepping for class, the worrying about how they're doing, the practicing at home over and over again, studying, reading stuff online, finding answers to the questions they have about anatomy. And oftentimes teachers will say to me, you know, this totally isn't what I expected. I did not expect it was going to take so much time. And the factor that people often miss and realize after is that this is all unpaid time that you're spending. And, you know, because I've been teaching for over 20 years and I left a six-figure corporate job to teach yoga full time and build my own brand, I had to learn how to use my time efficiently because time is money. And not just that, time is also uh, the currency of health because when you have time, you can do with it what you want. And a lot of that, for me at least, involves doing things that really fuel my health. So whether it's going outside, going for a walk, going for a run, exercising, spending time with Ben, going out to dinner, just things that just infuse my life with good health. And if you're constantly obsessing about how you're doing in your classes, if you're constantly prepping every week with this whole procedure, and then all of what goes along with that, practicing your sequence at home multiple times, that all cuts into your life. And I don't think you became a yoga teacher so you could struggle with fitting it into your life. I'll bet you decided to be a yoga teacher when you were inspired to go to your first teacher training because you were inspired by yoga and you had a strong desire to share it. And so all of these things that I'm talking about now, I bet you didn't expect. And so here you are, you're spending all this time and you're wondering, is this as good as it gets? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to give you a couple of examples of how this sort of thing plays out in my day to day. A lot of the things that I do, I look for ways that I can repurpose them. So if I do something once, I look at how can I repurpose what I did over and over again as a way to save time. So I'll give you a perfect example. When I started my own business, when I left my corporate job and I started my own business, I knew pretty quickly if I wanted to be able to make enough money to support myself, I'd need to have something that I could sell that was separate from me teaching classes. Because teaching a bunch of classes is limited by there's just one of me. I can only be one place at one time. And so I knew this was long before online learning was popular. I knew that if I built something online, I could sell it over and over again. And even though it might take me several hours to build, most likely longer than that, several weeks, I knew that if I put that time in, I could sell that program over and over again. And I could reach teachers all over the world, which I certainly couldn't do in person because I can only reach the people who come to my classes here in Boston. And so very early on, I recognized that building an online program, and in my area of expertise on anatomy, I knew it was going to be around anatomy. And I knew that it was a subject that yoga teachers struggled with. So I knew there was a need, and I knew there would be an interest to learn the fundamentals of anatomy in an easy step-by-step way. So 15 years ago, I built the first iteration, the first version of what is my flagship program, the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint Learning Program, my one-on-one program. And it has been my program that I've built on over the years as I've learned new things, as I've had many teachers go through it. And the point is, the time I took to build that program and the time I take to tweak it is minimal because I can repurpose that over and over and over again by offering it to more and more yoga teachers. So I only had to do the work essentially once to be able to reap the benefits, not just the benefits of helping me earn money from selling the program, but the benefits of interacting with yoga teachers. And the real benefit to me is the joy I get when I see yoga teachers in the program have these light bulb moments where they realize, oh my God, I'm understanding anatomy more. Wow, I never thought of using a signature sequence. Oh, the way you're sharing how to share these cues is making so much sense to me. And then when we get on coaching calls and they tell me how much more confident they feel teaching their classes, there's no amount of money I can put on how amazing that makes me feel. And so this is one example of doing something once that takes a bit of time and then being able to reuse that over and over and over again. That's essentially, and because I can reach teachers anywhere in the world with that program. That's what makes it what they call scalable. And when you have in a business things that scale. You have the ability to maximize your time and also earn money without having to constantly be doing the thing to earn the money. So, this is a business concept that I think many yoga teachers miss because so much of the messaging in the yoga industry is around hard work and teaching the classes face to face and creating sequences that are new every week. You don't want your students to get bored and, understanding all these intricacies of anatomy that require hours and hours and hours of study, when in reality, your students don't need to know anatomy at the level of so deep detail, like intricate detail. What most yoga teachers need to learn are the fundamentals of anatomy. And quite frankly, by their own admission, many yoga teachers tell me they didn't even learn that in their 200-hour training. So, in this episode, I'm going to share with you how you can save time. And yes, we can look at it just on economic terms and we can say time is money. Like if I asked you how much is an hour of your time worth, I hope, I hope that you would say, my time is worth $500 an hour, or even a bigger number. I hope you wouldn't say, my time is worth $50 an hour, because that's essentially saying to me, I don't even value my time. I'm going to put such a small number on it that I don't even value my time. So start to think about, how do you value your time? And think about all the things you're doing in your day that really either could be done by somebody else or don't even need to be done or could be done differently so that they don't take as much time. And I could go into so many things about running a house around this score because one of my superpowers is I'm a really good organizer and process person. And this comes from years I've had in corporate doing different organizational development tasks. And that is definitely something where, even when I talk to my friends, I hear about the way that they approach different things around the house. And I think, oh my God, there's such a better way to do that where you could save so much of your time and not even have to do things like spend money on having somebody come in every week to clean the house, because there are so many in-home things you can do to keep up with housework in a really efficient way if you choose to do it that way. Otherwise, people sometimes do choose to hire someone to come in. And that's just one example of time management. But when we're talking about it in the context of teaching yoga, and when we're talking about what is an hour of your time worth, I encourage you to start to think about your time as a valuable asset. And too many yoga teachers that I talk to, they just tell me with pride about the hours every week they spend prepping for their classes as if it is a badge of honor. And I'm sorry, this is part of the narrative in the yoga industry that you're supposed to feel honorable and feel really good when you spend all these hours prepping for your classes. When in reality, if you went in to teach your class with the same sequence over and over again, maybe with minor changes, but you knew it really well, your students would be jumping for joy and you would be jumping for joy because you wouldn't have to be spending all that time every week. And you would quickly realize that all of that sort of fake pride was really misplaced. And it was really buying into a narrative that the yoga world is peddling out there, that your students need you to have a new sequence every week. I mean, one of the amazing things that I get to witness every single time I work with a teacher in my program is their amazement at how using a signature sequence has saved them so much time. And more importantly, how their students could care less, how nobody even seemed to notice, how nobody said a word, how nobody even said, oh my God, why are we doing this same sequence again? So that conversation I've had multiple times with teachers in my program is really what I just get so much joy out of, because it's not like I say to them, you have to do this. I suggest, hey, why don't you experiment with this sequence you've been teaching for a couple of times? Why don't you experiment with teaching that for the next 4 weeks? And then let's get together on another coaching call and see how it's going. And every single time that follow-up call, I hear them say, no, nobody even cares I'm doing the same thing. I don't even think they notice. And the main thing that's happening is I know it so much more and I can teach it by walking around and without using my notes. And that makes me feel so confident and just like teaching is easy and fun. So I want to run through an equation with you and I want to really illustrate how this can play out. And this is the kind of thing that, again, when I used to work in corporate and I would do sort of a needs assessment and then I would do an evaluation of how a particular department was running, or in my own department, how we were working from an efficiency standpoint. This is the kind of thing I would do. And what's always so amazing to me is how people can be living in this kind of cycle and not even realize how much time they're spending. And again, a lot of it is belief driven. A lot of it is belief driven. So sometimes, even when people realize the time they're spending, in their head, they'll say, oh, well, I have to do it this way because, and then just get ready because here comes the belief. So let me just run through this equation with you and see if you see any of yourself in this equation. Does this look anything like your month as a yoga teacher? Spending 2 hours a week writing out a new sequence, which includes researching what to put in the sequence, which usually involves pulling out sequence books, looking on YouTube, things like that. Additionally, 2 hours a week practicing said new sequence, because most yoga teachers will tell me, well, after I write out the sequence, I practice it dozens of times at home. Additionally, 1 hour a week of accumulated time worrying about how your classes are going. And then finally, 1 hour a week doing research, reading anatomy books, looking up stuff online to answer student questions, and anything else that falls into that category. Now, the total weekly hours spent, according to what I just mapped out for you, is 6 hours a week. And this might not even include everything you're doing. I just wrote this out based on the years of conversations I've had with teachers. So with what I just laid out, equaling 6 hours a week in a 4-week month, that is 24 hours a month of unpaid time, and time you could be spending doing something else. I want you to just take a moment and realize what a mind-blowing equation that is. And believe me, this doesn't even include the time you spend teaching the class. So just let that sink into your head. 2 hours a week writing out a new sequence, 2 hours a week practicing said sequence, 1 hour a week worrying about your classes, 1 hour a week doing research to read anatomy books, etc. 6 hours a week times 4 weeks in a month is 24 hours a week. No wonder you don't have any time. No wonder you're starting to resent teaching yoga. Nobody told you it was going to take 24 hours a month of unpaid time. I would be pretty pissed too. So this is the state of things. And believe me, maybe these numbers aren't 100% exact for you. But even if it's not exact, just adjust the numbers. You're still going to come up with something like 10, 15 hours a month. So here's, what are the beliefs behind this sort of thing? So if we look at the first thing, 2 hours a week writing out a new sequence. So that activity is built on a belief that I have to change my sequence every week. because my students will get bored, because anatomically they need a new sequence so they can quote unquote work out different muscles. Both of those things are not valid, but they are purported by the yoga industry. So I don't blame you if you believe those things. All you need to do, though, is just ask yourself, in service to me getting some of this time back, am I willing to try something different? Now, if the answer is no, just stop listening to this podcast. Don't even listen to the rest of this episode. But if the answer is yes, if you're willing, then you're willing to see what's the alternative. So, of course, the alternative is using a signature sequence. So pick one of the sequences you've taught a couple times, make that your signature sequence, and experiment with teaching it over and over again in service to saving those 2 hours a week writing out a new sequence. There you go. So the next thing, 2 hours a week practicing said new sequence. The belief behind that is I have to practice when I teach. Otherwise, how are they going to know what to do? This is again a belief. And this belief is so strong in the yoga world because so many people go to class and the teacher is practicing. So when yoga teachers see their colleagues practicing in their classes, it just continues to reinforce the belief that that's how teachers teach. Additionally, when teachers create a new sequence and then practice it at home, that's the way their brain learns what to do. And so if they go in to teach their class and expect a different result, they can't get a different result because they've trained their brain to do the sequence by doing it. They've trained their brain to teach the sequence by doing it. So that's the belief. If you're willing to try something different, pick a sequence you've taught, as we said earlier, to be your signature sequence. And instead of practicing it at home, spend a little bit of time talking yourself through it at home. Then when you go into the class, you'll have taught yourself how to talk them through the sequence. And this directly relates to what I talked about before. Let's say you had to spend, let's say you got to spend, not had to spend, let's say you were willing and curious and interested and even excited to spend 2 hours one particular week talking yourself through the sequence multiple times. Maybe you intersperse that 2 hours over multiple days. And then when you went in to teach the class over the next 4 times, you got better and better at doing the walk and talk. That's an exact example of putting in the time once to get time back over and over and over and over and over again. Because you literally would be training yourself to decrease your dependence on the practicing with your class in service to being the kind of teacher who can do the walk and talk. And so once you put the time in once to learn it, now you've learned it and you get that time back over and over again. The third time allotment we talked about is 1 hour of accumulated time every week worrying about how your classes are going. I picked an hour. Some teachers obsess about how they're doing in their classes every single day, multiple times a day. And most teachers tell me on the days they have to teach, most of their day is spent worrying about how that class is going to go. And these worries come from different places. They come from, I'm worried the class isn't going to like it. I'm worried I'm going to mess up. I'm worried someone's going to get hurt. All the things I address when I work with teachers in my one-on-one program or my group program. So part of getting that time back lies in feeling more confident about what you're doing. And the what you're doing is the cueing and sequencing. So we've already talked at length about the sequencing. And so for the cueing, what I would offer is to just speak to action. Just speak to action. The 4 types of cues are action, alignment, anatomy, and somatic. Just use action cues. You will start to shift into a more confident way of teaching simply by focusing on action cues, clearly sharing action cues as the way to teach. And then the last thing on our list of time you're potentially allotting to teaching is 1 hour a week doing research, reading anatomy books, looking up stuff online to answer student questions. Geez, you might even be researching online a 300 or 500-hour program thinking, God, I'm just not doing well and I just must need more hours, which is one of the most fundamental beliefs, one of the most fundamental misplaced beliefs that yoga teachers have. Your students don't care how many hours of training you have. Your students are not looking on the website of the yoga studio and reading your bio past maybe what your name is. Most people, if you stop them on the street, don't know boo about Yoga Alliance and don't know anything about 200, 300, or 500 hours. What your students know and experience is you when you walk into the room. And yes, I do firmly believe that everybody needs at least 200 hours of training. But I don't believe that people need 300 and 500 hours of training. If there's a specific reason and result that you want to get, and one of those trainings can help you, great. But what most yoga teachers need are really high level skills in cueing and sequencing, and they need to understand the fundamentals of anatomy. And generally, that is touched on in a 200-hour training, but it's really a specialty program like mine that gives people those skills. The 300 and 500-hour path is more for I want to niche down into a particular thing, or I want to stay kind of general and just get more knowledge. And that's great. Getting more knowledge is great. But when you want specific results, you want a specific result-driven program. And that's why I run the programs I run, because I want yoga teachers to get actual results, not just add knowledge into their brain. So let me kind of pose it this way. We've gone through the metrics here. 2 hours a week writing out a new sequence, 2 hours a week practicing the sequence, 1 hour of accumulated time worrying about how your classes are going, 1 hour a week doing research. We added that up. That's 6 hours a week times 4 weeks in a month. That's 24 hours of unpaid time. And this doesn't even include traveling to class, teaching the class. You can't avoid that stuff. You got to do those things. So what if I told you that you could instead spend just 4 total hours inside my Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program, and you could learn how to build a signature sequence, how to clearly share your cues, and you could learn the essentials of anatomy all in 4 1-hour live sessions, allowing you to avoid all the prep you're currently doing every single month. Would that be a good trade-off for you? Would that be a good trade-off for you? And this directly relates to the story I shared at the beginning about how I learned how doing something once could yield all sorts of time back into my life over years. Now, think about it this way, spending 4 hours of your time just once to save 24 hours of your time every single month. Is that not mind-blowing? That to me is mind-blowing. I can't even imagine why you would say no to that. Now, you could even adjust the monthly estimate I came up with down to just 10 hours and you'd still be saving time. I mean, the bottom line is building the skills of effective cueing and sequencing not only saves you time, but builds your confidence. Now you can get back all that time you're currently spending worrying. I don't think there's a time value you can even put on that. I can remember when I was working with a yoga teacher, and she said when she would leave for class after the entire day of worrying about what was going to happen in her class, and as she would leave, her husband would cheerily say to her, "Have a good time at your class," or "Have a good class." And she would just kind of be seething inside, like, how come he doesn't realize how stressed out I am about teaching this class, and he's just so kind of cheery as I leave the house. And she shared this with me. I'm not making this up. And as we worked together and as I taught her this idea of signature sequencing, and sharing clear cues and the fundamentals of anatomy. And as she started experimenting with these different techniques in her classes, her confidence grew. And it got to the point where she left the house and he would say, "Have a good class." And she'd say, "Okay, see you later." And she felt so light. And she didn't even feel that resentment she felt before. And furthermore, she wasn't worrying about her class the entire day up until the point where she was leaving to drive to the studio. So you can't put a dollar amount on that. You can't put a time value on that. But the reality is, I know that what I am sharing is not for every teacher. Some teachers will say it won't work, and they will hold on tightly to their beliefs and keep spending all that time every month. I mean, I'll give you another example of this particular situation. I can remember I was talking on a Zoom call to a yoga teacher who was interested in not the accelerator program, which is a group program, but my one-on-one program, the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint. And she was going on and on about how much time she was spending every week prepping. And she pulled out, and we were on a Zoom call so I could see her journals, which were composition books. Do you remember composition books with the black and white cover? It has like the spotted look. And she pulled out this pile, must have been 10 composition books, and proudly showed me, "These are all my books of sequences." And it didn't even occur to her. I mean, she was sharing this with me as this badge of honor, as this requirement, as this commitment to what she had done. And she wasn't even able to see that she had built this problem herself by continuing to believe this belief that I have to create a new sequence every week. Now, I see this kind of thing all the time in lots of different areas for yoga teachers. And believe me, it's not that it makes my heart break. It actually, for me, makes me so glad that I have an opportunity to speak to a teacher who's in a situation like this, because I can share with them another possibility for them that allows them, let's just take this one case, to loosen their attachment to creating a new sequence every week, to getting their time back, to starting to see that there is another way for them, and to start to really look at, gosh, when I create a sequence, a new sequence every week, is it really because I think my students need it? Or is it because on some level, it makes me feel like I'm doing something? It makes me feel like I'm a quote unquote good teacher. It makes me feel like I'm quote unquote doing the right things. I mean, that's a lot of what drives the things that we do as humans that might not necessarily be the best choice for us, but there's some logic in our brain that we've attached to what we're doing that makes us feel like, oh, we're doing something. I mean, in the business side of my yoga business, the yoga work that I do, there are some weeks where I've got a task I really know is going to move the needle forward for me. But instead, I'll spend the entire week writing emails, to people on my email list, creating content for my TikTok and Instagram page. And I'll go to bed at night and I'll feel like, oh, I did a bunch of things today. But looming in the back of my mind is that one task that I know is a really important task that could really help me reach more yoga teachers, but it's just going to take maybe a different approach or a different way to do something that I'm not as comfortable with. So instead, I'll fill my week with a whole bunch of these other tasks that are really easy for me to do. And then I'll go to bed at night and I'll feel like I checked a bunch of stuff off my list. But I know, if I'm really being honest with myself, I really didn't do the thing that mattered. And so that's a big part of me having a commitment and having the integrity to myself. But it takes looking at yourself and having that introspective look. And a lot of yoga teachers don't have an opportunity to do that because there's so much messaging to the contrary that they hear that that inner voice is just drowned out. And that's why I have such a strong belief in the way that I work with yoga teachers, whether it's my small group program, the Anatomy Accelerator, or the one-on-one program. I'm working with you live So I have an opportunity to hear how you're doing, to hear what you're thinking, and then to offer different approaches and experiments that you can play around with in service to you finding what works for you. I'm never going to be the kind of person to say you have to do it my way, because quite frankly, that's what I was told in many of my original teacher training programs. Well, certainly my first one. And it wasn't necessarily said in that way. No one's going to say it in that way, but that's the whole model. You have the guru running the training. The guru knows how you should be teaching. The guru tells the teacher trainees, this is how you do it. And the teacher trainees fall in line and they do it. Even when they go out there and they're teaching and they're not getting the results they want. They say, oh, well, that's what I was trained to do. I must just have to keep suffering through it this way. Not in my world, not in the yoga world that I am building with the teachers that I work with in my programs. I don't even really like to say that I train teachers. I mean, I don't even really like that phrase. I work with yoga teachers, primarily women of all different ages, to help them find the way of teaching for them where they feel confident and empowered. That's my mission. It has nothing to do with training you. It has everything to do with helping you find what works best for you. And believe me, I have a methodology to guide you, but I'm going to work with you to find out, is that working? How did that experiment go? What did you find out when you went into your class and you started using that signature sequence? How do you feel? I don't even really care what your students think about your classes. When teachers come to me and they say, I don't really feel like I'm doing a good job, but I'm getting really good feedback. Or they'll say, I just have a lot of anxiety around teaching, but my students seem to like it. It doesn't matter to me what they think. You're going to have a whole revolving door of people coming to your classes. So for the class you taught on Tuesday, where people said it was great, to the class you taught on Thursday, where there were new faces in there and they didn't say anything, we can't attach how we're doing to the feedback we get from our students. We must look at it through the lens of our own experience. How do we feel? How do I feel? How do you feel when you teach your class? Does it feel easy? Does it feel natural? Does it feel fun? Do you feel confident? Do you feel competent? Do you feel qualified to be there? Those are the kinds of inquiry questions that I ask teachers to help them get at the root of what's blocking them. And those are not the kinds of conversations that teachers have in hours-based programs. But those are the kinds of conversations that really move the needle forward. So as we wrap this up, this equation that we went through, we came up with 24 hours a month. And, again, if you're the kind of yoga teacher who is, let's just say, even excited about the prospect of, oh my God, you mean I could just spend 4 hours once in your Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program and get back all this time? I would say, yeah, then you're a perfect fit for this. So again, the numbers are going to kind of change depending on what you're doing right now. So again, if it's not a 24 hours a month scenario for you, maybe it's a little less, but I can pretty much promise you that when you're in this Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program, the things you're going to leave with, the skills you're going to leave with, are going to absolutely take a chunk out of that unpaid time you're currently spending. And quite frankly, even if it doesn't initially do that, I will work with you to help you get over the hump so that it is a good return on investment for you. So because I'm not just sending you off to watch videos, I'm actually working with you live. You're going to have an opportunity to tell me if it's working or not. And my commitment is to you and to make sure that you get the results you want out of the program. So because you are a listener of the podcast, I'm going to give you $50 off. So your total cost of the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program will be just $347. Now you can find the link in the show notes to the program, but you need the discount code. So you must send me a DM on Instagram at Barebones Yoga. Tell me you listen to the podcast and you want the discount code for the accelerator program, and I'll give it to you. And the reason I'm not just telling you is because I really want to hear from you if this is an interest for you to enroll rather than just having you blindly enroll. I want to hear from you if you are motivated to enroll in this program, and that then I'll give you the discount code. Um, so that's an opportunity for you. It's an amazing opportunity for you to get all this time back. Now, let me just say this one last thing as I wrap up. I gave you a whole bunch of free information here on this episode. So if you're thinking in the back of your mind, oh my God, this whole episode was just a sales pitch, I essentially just walked you through exactly what you need to do, what you can do. So you don't even, I'll be honest with you, if you can do this on your own, go for it. Like, this was not a bait and switch to get you on this podcast to pitch you the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program. I never sell anything. Everything I have is in service to helping the right yoga teacher who's a match for what I'm saying get to be the kind of yoga teacher they want to be, have that transformation. So I don't sell anything. I offer things, and if the right person's out there for it, just like you're not the yoga teacher for everybody, I'm not the yoga teacher for everybody. The offers I have are not a match for everybody, and that's okay. That doesn't say anything to me about the quality of my program and the impact that it can have. It just simply means it's like a key in a lock. I'm looking for the yoga teachers who are a match for this. But know that if you want to give it a shot yourself, go for it. Listen to this episode again, take some notes. I gave you exactly the action steps. Now, of course, the actual content of how to cue, the actual content of the 10 steps in my blueprint to learning anatomy, the actual content of how to create a signature sequence and teach it. That's the kind of stuff that I share when you're in my program. And that's what you invest in. But I gave you a really good framework. So go for it, right? Go for it and go out and give it a shot. Otherwise, if again, this is about valuing your time. And this is again where so many yoga teachers, in my opinion, fall short. They listen to an episode like this and they say to themselves, I don't want to spend $347. I'll just listen to this podcast again and just figure out how to do it myself. And I'm like, don't you value your time? $347 is a very reasonable price for a program that could save you hours every month. And this is exactly where, when we talked at the beginning of how much is your time worth, this is where that comes up. When you say to me, I'm just going to figure this out on my own, what I hear is, I don't really value my time. I don't value my time. It's even if it takes me hours and hours and hours of trying and trying and trying to figure this out on my own, I would rather spend all that time than spend $347 to have someone who knows how to do this show me how and just be done with it in 4 hours. So again, I want to just do that metric, walk you through the metrics here because I know these beliefs can run strong. And now we're getting into beliefs around money. So the belief around $347 is too much for me, juxtaposed with, so I'll just spend the next 3 months at 24 hours a month. Now I'm at over 80, 246, 24, I'm over 60 hours that I'm spending trying to figure it out, where I could spend 4 or 5 hours with Karen inside her program. Like, I don't get how that logic works. So again, everybody's situation is different. I don't know your situation, but I wanted to be super crystal clear in walking you through the metrics to see, as we bump against the beliefs that you have, what's possible for you in terms of shifting from the beliefs you have to something that's in your mind more freeing. So that's it for today. I hope that you found this helpful, and you can always send me a comment or question on my Instagram. Until next episode, when we meet again, have a good time period in between. I don't know, I want to say week, but I don't know when you're going to be listening to this. And thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Conversations for Yoga Teachers. Namaste. Thanks for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And hey, one more thing. While I don't know you personally, I know what a yoga teacher looks like who's ready to have a breakthrough to being the kind of yoga teacher who walks around the room, sharing cues you know the reason for, understands anatomy, teaching signature sequences without notes or any need to practice with class, and loves teaching yoga without stress, anxiety, or nervousness. If you are ready to be that yoga teacher, here is your next step. DM me the words podcast offer, and I will give you a special incentive to work with me inside of my signature program just because you are listening to the podcast. DM me on Instagram at Bare Bones Yoga. I can't wait to hear from you.